Eva Jyoti, Atma Jyoti, Shivoshmyaham. I am the supreme light of awareness, illuminating the outer world of objects, inner world of thoughts, and deep sleep state. I am divine light of the nature of auspiciousness, Shiva Swarupi. Om Guru Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. He who guides you on the righteous path is a guru. When a parent or teacher or a friend or an animal or a bird or a plant conveys message of righteousness, they embody a guru. A guru's knowledge encompasses the creation, maintenance, and transformation at all times. A guru represents the voice of the Creator himself in showing the righteous path for all beings at all times. Voice of the divine is revealed through the message of the guru. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The Guru can guide us to the supreme knowledge of that which pervades all the living and non-living beings in the entire universe, namely Brahman. I salute such a Guru.
JG, before you start, I have something to say.
Yeah.
Padmaji, your son is Aditya Iyer, right? Yeah. So yesterday I heard him in the speaker session. Absolutely amazing, the way he spoke on Adi Shankaracharya. Really, the judges were also pretty excited. Vasudevji was the judge yesterday, and he personally told me that this boy is truly amazing. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri ji. Yeah, let's continue, Satya ji.
Narayana Sambharambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Beginning with Narayana through Adi Shankaracharya in between and up to my own preceptor, I bow with reverence to the entire tradition of preceptors. Beginning with Sadashiva through Adi Shankaracharya in between and up to my own preceptor, I bow with reverence to the entire tradition of preceptors.
Thank you very much, Satya ji. And welcome to all the divine Atma Jyotis. Hari Om. So let us continue our contemplation on the Tattva Bodha. So far, in summary, we have seen as far as Tattva Bodha is concerned, Prabhuji's, through Prabhuji's talks, the explanation about the Mangalacharana, that is what we have heard. Then we have also seen how Shankaracharya offers his gratitude to his teachers, and Prabhuji does too. And for us, it is this lineage that is showing the path. So we offer our gratitude also and respects to this Guru Parampara. Then we have seen the Adhikari portion of the Tattva Bodha. So the fourfold qualifications of developing the discrimination, detachment, then development of the Shat Sampati, leading towards liberation. So this is what is covered in the initial portion, the Adhikari. Then we have started the contemplation on the Atma Tattva Viveka, discrimination to recognize the Atman. So here we have so far rather than jumping into this, we have so far taken up these questions and we have been going one by one. In the last session, we contemplated till these 4 questions. What is Satya, Asatya, Mithya? And what is Nitya, Anitya, Viveka? Then how we can come to the clarity that we had a distinction of the word, not necessarily completely blind, but it is not complete. It is not giving a complete picture. Rather than saying completely blind, what is meant by mind colors, what is seen? So these are the 4 questions that we took up, and each one of us shared our understanding. So today we can take up the next 3 questions. Before we take up the next 3 questions, is there anyone who likes to either bring up a question or have any clarification to be shared related to these 4 questions? Related to Satya, Asatya, Mithya, then Nitya, Anitya, Viveka. Then how can we say that the senses are not giving complete picture? And what is meant by mind is coloring all that is seen? So there's a question that Padmaji brought up that I will add it to the end. And when we go into this part, so Padmaji's question, do you want to say the question, Padmaji?
Yes, sir. So the question was actually, I was going through Prabhuji's 4th video as well. And when I saw that my question came up, like, I have a like fairly clear amount of understanding of what is Satya, Satya, Mithya, and also Atma, Anatma, Viveka. Now, my question is like, how I understand is everything. For example, the sun is there in the existence, but the sun rises in the east or anything related to the sun is very individualistic, and that is what we call it as mithya. Is my understanding correct? That is one point.
Mithya is anything that is changing.
Yeah.
It is experientially real, but that experience is constantly changing.
Yeah. So I understand that for at least from my perspective, I say that sun may be there in the existence, but whatever happens related to it is all mithya, right? Because I don't see it during sleeping or
Even sun as an
states.
object, even sun as an object is not real in the sense that it is also constantly changing. It's a burning star. So the idea of the sun is again what we have referred to a particular object in the sky.
Okay. So with that thing, I mean, I processed it in different ways, and then I arrived at a question, right? There are many studies from ancient times, whether it is astrology, numerology, or even science for that matter, which is based on the movement of sun, the planets, and the moon, which we know, which we read or we know. But it has been probably discovered in our culture more than in any other modern science. For example, long time back, our rishis knew the placements of the planets and they have spoken about it. And even related to numbers, there are a lot of theories that have come upon in our culture first. So obviously, they are people of such high knowledge and they would have had this Advaita knowledge at that time. So considering Satya and Asatya, I mean, why did these concepts or theories come about? Like,
Mithya doesn't mean that it doesn't adhere to a particular principle, no. So the principle of operation is still there. As long as the world is operating, the world is operating through these principles. There is never a disconnect between the mithya, as Advaita says, and the world that we see and the existential principles. Fire still burns, but the burning experience is not reality in the sense that it is not a constant experience. As long as that there is an object to perceive the heat, there is a burning sensation. It's a constantly changing experience, but it still adheres to certain principles. And those principles is what our rishis have discovered.
Yes, sir. But my question is there even a need to do that when there is, I mean, see, now we come itself with an understanding, or maybe through our conditioning, somebody has told us that the sun rises in the east. But definitely there would have been a period where you don't have such concepts at all. Uh, like who named sun as the sun, or I don't know, the first time, the first ever time. So why did they even go into these principles? Was it for their individual understanding of that mithya, which appears and disappears in their experience?
So what is the question? Can you frame the question?
Yeah, my question is like, why do we need the science at all, or did it come up as each one of these rishis were trying to make a sense of their world for themselves? That is how did it come up, because it is like every theory or principle is not associated to all the rishis. It is very like specific to certain people. Like every rishi did not, somewhere specializing in astrology, somewhere like that. So did these studies or principles come about because they were finding answers for themselves, trying to make sense of the world for themselves?
Okay. Is it also?
Vijay, namaste. I want to interrupt. I want to share my idea here for Padmaji's query.
One small request, 1 minute, please. So Padmaji, then is there another related question that you're trying to ask here? So one is you're trying to ask?
Yeah, but this is one thing. And of course, I do understand a part of this question is that if we didn't have all that also, our mithya itself would I don't know how it will be, because our mithya is also based on the sciences to a large extent and the understanding of it. Second one is, did they come up with it because...
1 minute. When you say our mithya is based on the sciences, can you clarify that part? What do you mean by our mithya is based on sciences?
For example, like when we say that, for example, my world is a projection of my mind, right? So if I have an clear understanding of science, I know why an eclipse is happening. And that might not have been my understanding necessarily. For example, when I was 3 years old, for a 3-year-old, an eclipse or a sun rising in the east, I am not going to be very bothered about it or even get affected by it. But maybe through my education or what, I came to know now what is an eclipse. And in our tradition, say for example, there are certain things associated with the solar eclipse or whatever, which we should not view with our our naked eye. Or so these kind of things people teach you, or you learn, acquire from somewhere. So now when I'm looking at an eclipse, I'm looking at it from whatever knowledge I have about that. So again, that is again the projection of my mind is what I understand.
So you're trying to say here that everything is a projection of your mind.
No, there are some things might be like common for everybody, but for example, see somebody who's not educated, they might not know what is a solar eclipse, right? So how will they be seeing the eclipse as? They wouldn't be seeing it as the same way as me. Or for a scientist who is into these kind of who take pictures of this eclipse, they might have a different understanding. They might want to see the sun, so they will find out ways to look at the sun, like the glasses and all. But it is not necessarily my domain. I will just, for me, it's like, okay, solar eclipse, so I have some understanding of what should be done, what should not be done. I will just follow it, or I will just not look at the sun, or I may choose a different channel to look at the solar eclipse. That's what is my thing. So my essential thing is a lot of our things, for example, even in astrology, our culture is something which believes in astrology to a large extent. It's not like we don't believe. So in fact, many families are very, very rigorous on those things. So I feel that when everything is mithya, why do we even need all these things? I mean, does it?
All right.
Yeah, I am not able to.
So the question you're framing is Vedanta states world as mithya. So what purpose does science serve at all?
Yeah.
Is this the way you are trying to frame this?
Yeah, I cannot say purpose, but why these sciences? Because if it is a changing world, do I really need to know so much details about it? Like, for example, why
Okay.
do I need to know so much? Yeah.
Okay, all right. So
Anyway, it's changing.
so just
Why?
realize that world is mithya and keep quiet. That is the
Yeah,
another.
and then use it. Like Prabhuji says, obviously you have to use it. There is no choice there, I feel. I mean, to use mithya for to use it, I don't think we have a choice. We only have the choice of making it a suffering or using it as a tool. I think that is the only choice we have. We don't have a choice of eliminating mithya completely, right?
Yeah.
Till we are in this physical world. Yeah.
So if let's
Physical
say you
body.
do not understand about fire, how can you use it? Isn't understanding about fire a part of understanding the nature of the things in the world?
Yeah, but then isn't it very individualistic? Like, for example, fire is
Burning
something.
is not individualistic. No, fire burning is a common experience.
Yeah, that's what fire burning is common, and we all are generally using it. But it is not the same with any other sciences, right? So that is why I came up with the question that is it like something which they started doing it for their individual understanding? For example, some rishis might have been really interested in what is out there in the skies, or out in the planets, and how they revolve and rotate and all that. So
but isn't it also true that if somebody else follows that path, they also come to the same clarity? It is not like it is different for different people. That is what science is, isn't it? Science must yield the same result for two people doing the same thing, isn't it?
yeah, but is it same, sir, for all? It is not same, right? The way we believe in science is different from where
That is where the
the
very
Western world.
belief.
Sorry?
You are using the word belief. So as long as you only believe, then you can believe whatever. But science is not about belief. No, science is about, okay, there's a belief, but you make it a hypothesis, verify the hypothesis, and make sure that using those boundary conditions, every time the results are repetitive. So then it must be the same for anybody who follows that path to realize the same exact conclusion. That is what you call as a science. And that is what Vedanta is with respect to our inner clarity.
Okay.
So in that way, it is not a matter of belief, no? I may believe that sun is, like little children, we tell the story, right? Moon, Chandamama, you play with it, it will come to you if you keep playing. Like that, we make stories. That could start as a belief. But then you start examining, isn't it? And when you examine, you have to have a way of examining, and the way of examination and the way of arriving at a certain clarity about that mithya world is what you can call as science, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But how is it going to make a difference to the
I mean,
real me?
hasn't it made a difference to your living life?
Yeah,
For
to
example,
the
whether
living,
it is
yeah,
car
to the living
yeah.
life, yes. To the living life, yes.
Yeah, so it does make a difference, no? So now you no more have to hunt and gather. You no more have to, maybe even in the case of COVID, run around. A lot of things, a lot of conveniences. So science has a use, isn't it?
Yeah, it has a use. Yes, definitely.
Let's hear maybe on this topic quickly. Can each one of us share, your individual understanding, maybe for a couple of minutes?
Namaste Vijayji. I would like to share few points on Padmaji, what she is asking. In the video, what Prabhuji was explaining, see, the understanding of the world is mithya is one thing, and to go along with it is another thing. Because as you told, it's a livelihood. Because we know world is mithya, and we are living there. So whatever for our daily needs, whatever is happening, everything is mithya. That is one understanding. So to lead our life, the science is absolutely is required. So when we have that feeling, we need not correlate the world is mithya and whatever the eclipse is happening. The only thing is what we have to is understand is existence. Something is existence. Existence is true, and I am experiencing the existence. So I am Atma. So that is where I would like to share this part. The rest of the things, whatever we are till where we are leading our life in this world, everything is mithya. So we cannot conclude that why the science is we have to study or this thing. That is the purpose of life. We have to accept it, because till we have our life in this world, we need to go along with the science. That is one part. And what I have not understood is anitya, that is the pseudo object. The tongue is the tasting the part. That after this sharing the thing, you can explain me once again, sir.
Okay, excellent. But realizing that Atman alone is the Satya and rest everything that is coming into the experience is Mithya, how does, and everything is nothing but existence. Existence is reality. How does
Yes.
it help your life? How is it helping your life, Priyaji?
See, from past 15 or 20 days, like what I am experiencing in Bangalore is, see, first, for example, I would, with my personal experience, I would like to go. See, if I take everything, one is what Prabhuji is telling is, we should not mix what is Satya and Mithya. Okay, Satya, I am alone. That is what I am experiencing. When I came down here, I am going through a lot of disturbances in the thing. Like I lost my mother-in-law, and I was used to go to the hospital every day, 2-3 hours. I used to be in the hospital in the pandemic. So everywhere, everyone used to advise me, why do you go there? Some other be there. So you be at home, don't go outside. But see, we will be experiencing, we have to take a caution. Everything is mithya. This pandemic is not permanent. We have to go along with that. So when I have that thought in my mind, I am experiencing all these things. So everyone, other is also, I is existence. That is that consciousness. So other, everything is mithya. What is happening as itself, world is mithya. The whatever the pandemic is happening, that is also mithya. It will be there, and after 2 years, or it may this thing, it will go off. So that confidence in that belief in me made me strong to face all these things. Even today, every day 1 hour I go outside. Morning 1 hour I go, because here whatever, it's a temporary setup what we have in Bengaluru. So I go to buy milk and vegetables and whatever the needy provision, because after a few days I'll be applying for the e-pass to go back to my Coimbatore, my place. So only for few days only I plan few things. So every day it'll be a thing. It will be a thing that I have to go outside and come back in 1 hour. So even the thing is there, I take all the precaution. How I'm taking this, science is helping me. Wear mask, multi-layer mask, sanitization, whatever. This the science is helping me, and the confidence what I have understood. Like I am Brahma, the other things are mithya. That confidence is helping me to face all these things. I'm confident. And one more thing is, I'm all away from all this social media, who were black fungus, white fungus, and all those things. So my thing is, do the daily routine, be aware of the signs what you have, and be strong, and accept whatever as it comes, and be conscious. That is the thing what is making me strong. I'm holding on that concept. I'm just moving. That is how my understanding is helping Vijayji.
Very nice, Priyaji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's go one by one. How about Prakash ji?
Okay, just to answer her question, I think there are two ways of looking at the world. One is you can look outside and start theorizing or start understanding what's happening in the outside world, and that's what that's how the science has progressed. And of course, the science has its own benefits. Science, the essence of science is to make lives better. I mean, how we live, it's going to make it better. But what our rishis have done is taken a different path, and they started looking inside and started asking questions: Who am I, and where did I come from, and what is the goal in life, etc. And that's how the Vedanta and other related studies have progress. So the both are required. So we cannot say the science is not required, only Vedanta is required, or Vedanta is required, and both are required. So you need to make use of both, is my understanding.
Is, in your opinion, is science and Vedanta in contradiction, or are they complementary?
No, I think they culminate in the same thing. I mean, if you look at the final statements of Einstein and Newton, for example, Newton once said, the world is like a big clock. So you can go any closer to it and make any number of theories about it, but you never get to open it. See, this is a statement of the Newton, one of the famous celebrated scientists of the world. I mean, even if you look at some of the Einstein statements, it sounds similar. So it all leading to one thing, which is not understood by going outside. So that need to be understood by going inside, and that's what our rishis have done. So we cannot say everything is mithya, so just ignore it. I mean, this leads back to the same question which I brought up last time. See, mithya doesn't mean it is untruth or something which is not existential. Mithya simply means we are just going by the definition and classifying it as truth and something which is changing, something which is transient, and something which is changing in space. That doesn't mean that is untrue or that is not required. That is definitely required. We cannot deny our experience. We need to honor our experience. And as Prabhuji was mentioning in his talk, we need to know something which we don't know from where we are today, what we know today, and from there we need to go towards what we don't know. So we cannot deny our existence or deny our experience and then go towards something which we don't know. So then we just wander in a forest, being aimless. So we need to go from what we know today to what we don't know. So what we know today is definitely this existence.
Would you say that Vedanta is a bigger framework to understand the entire reality?
I don't say bigger or smaller. Vedanta is just another framework of looking at things. But as I said, one is looking at outside, one is looking what's happening in the nature. Like Newton did, he looked at the apple, why did it fall? Is a question he asked. But some rishi asked, why did I born? Why am I? Where did I come from? So it's simply about inquiry. It's simply about human nature to question. See, that's how everything has progressed in the world.
Excellent. Thank you, Prakash ji.
Thank you.
Okay, Saravanan ji.
Yeah, so I have thought about this a lot, and the conclusion I came to is you can be in any human. I took a human being. A human being can be in either of the two states. One state is where like completely unattached or like unaware of the existence, more living more with what he or she sees and experience, right? And like the way the life is like you want to enjoy this world, this game, go ahead and enjoy it, but then go figure out what this game is about. And that's what all this science is dealing with, right? But but at the end of the game, you are going to come to the same conclusion that you can never be happy forever, and you will go through ups and downs, and it's not going to give you satisfaction. Okay, but in that game, all this science, astrology, everything comes, right? But it is not the way I see it. It's not necessary to learn all those things. It's not a must. Like, yes, a car helps you to go from one place to another. A flight helps you, washing machine helps you. But then it's just that, like, you live without them, and like you will be limited to a small life. It doesn't mean that like you are not going to, you are not, it's not possible to live. You can still wash your clothes by yourself. You can limit your communication, or limit your conveyance walking to close by places. It's not that like you have to have a car or a plane to live. And it's just that like that experience has no limits. The human is like moved from walking to bullock carts, then to cycle, then, and like you can, and like the human wants more and more experience, and there is no limit to it. Okay, so you want if your focus is that, yeah, you can spend time, and like you can enjoy, and but at the same time you will realize that the more and more you try to enjoy, the suffering also comes. It doesn't, it is always there on the other side. Okay, while the other side is, okay, you know what, hey, I enjoyed, I am tired of this, I want to understand what is going on, what's this game, right? That is where the Vedanta comes in, where like I feel like it's more of a maturing process. At some point of times, everyone has to realize, and like has to come to this point saying that, okay, it doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, I want to understand, and that understanding gives a lot more clarity, and finally leads to a satisfactory state, which you don't get in the scientific world with all your luxuries and other things.
Excellent. Very nice. Thank you, Sravananji.
Yeah.
Can we hear Shubhaji?
Sir, I would like to listen to everyone today because I don't have any points to add other than what I said last week.
Now, about this particular question, if the world is mithya, do we need sciences at all? On that particular question, do you have any views to share?
I feel it is both go together. That is what is my understanding.
Okay. So when you say both go together, any examples or any particular way you want to elaborate that?
Like Prabhuji said in the video, for your day-to-day life, you have to act as, you can't say everything is mithya and go around telling people that everything is mithya. For the everyday things in the world, you have to act as if you are the person. So that is my understanding. So
it brings clarity that you are acting in the world, so that gives you freedom.
yes.
Okay, very nice. Any more points you would like to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhaji. What about Kamaji?
Yeah, Vijayji. Yeah, I firmly believe, this, yeah, everything keeps changing. There's nothing to be, what you call it, saying that that's permanent. It's just the time frame that, we speak about. And yeah, there's something called, law of conservation. That is, if you take the entirety, then, and if you see locally, what is changing, perhaps something else is changing, along with it. That is something which, I firmly believe. So yeah, either you can take it as a mithya or truth. yeah, if you don't understand something, it becomes really a mithya, because you see it's changing. But once you really understand and give a scientific reasoning, then you know, because you're now seeing a bigger picture. And coming back to some of the examples which which Prakashji said, that yeah, I mean, everything is there. It's just that, I mean, yeah, scientists, the science was there earlier also. Just that, what happened was down the line, this is what we were told eventually. Down the line, what happens, because there was no documentation and it was through word of mouth, somewhere down the line, some corruption happened. And then it poked into multiple streams. And then there was an argument, debate and things like that. And it persisted for long. And it's still going on. But now in a scientific temper, everybody wants a proof. Everybody wants a documentation. And now people come back and say, oh, okay, I think I shared last week or a couple of days back a shloka on the speed of light, which if I read it as from a Sanskrit perspective or from a shloka, it sounds very nice. But then people, when you get to understand it, then there is a people have already thought of it in a nutshell. People have already thought of it about it. It has transferred to to word of mouth. Somewhere down the line there was a corruption. Okay, and that's how it didn't come through. So yeah, that the moment that ignorance is gone, or when you really understand what it is, I think then you start appreciating. So this is what my take on it.
So just realizing the Vedantic statement that world is mithya doesn't necessarily need to take away the intrinsic curiosity. Is that what you are essentially?
Right. Yes. You still probe. You still have that, what you call that curiosity to understand and accept it. Yes, that is changing, but you also know why it is changing.
What is making it change, and what are the principles with which it is changing?
Yeah. And then people then attribute this word called cause and effect and all that stuff.
So the fundamental cause and effect is understood by Vedanta, whereas the transient cause and effect is what science is helping us to realize.
To realize it, because they are more interested in documenting it, because what I see, the others also have to see. Then only there is a common agreement. Yes, yeah, this is what is happening. And that is what the transaction is all about, because we are living in a materialistic world.
So while science deals with objects, Vedanta deals with subject.
It does both, in my opinion. It's not just the subject part, but it also does with object part also. Now, example, just we all know, because yeah, in the past, they said the Earth is at the center and the sun is moving, because we didn't have that wisdom or the tools available to put ourselves in a different frame of reference and check. When this was proved scientifically, that's when they said, okay, the person who proposed it was right. This is very small example, because we see day in and day out. But there were a lot of things which rishis have seen it.
Well, what is your take on the word itself, Vedanta?
Sorry, is that a question to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, difficult to answer at this point in time. Yeah, I have to contemplate on it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Kamaji. Can we listen to?
Can I add few points to this? What the?
If you don't mind, can we listen to Satyaji, Gayatriji, and come back in the next round? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Priyaji. Satyaji.
Yeah, Vijayji. So, I mean, I feel that, there is something called Vyavaharika Satya, Pratibhasika Satya, and Paramadhika Satya. So, Paramadhika Satya is the absolute reality. See, when we look at the sun, when we look at the tree, or when we look at a person, everything points out to pure consciousness, the Brahman. So that is Paramadhika Satya. So our life is the journey of understanding or, abiding in the Paramadhika Satya. But there is something called Vyavaharika Satya, which is transactional reality. And then there is something called Pratibhasika Satya, where it is a temporary reality, where we believe that something is there until the time we know it is not true.
Hmm.
For example, suppose the sun rises in the east is something we have been told since our birth. That is a Vyavaharika Satya, because a person who is educated, uneducated, everyone needs to know that the sun rises in the east. There is, it is what you really need. A child or a grown-up person needs this piece of information. So that is Vyavaharika Satya. There are many things which even science says that these are the things which are there in the world. So we use that for making our life better. Now, why do we have to make our life better? Why is that science required? Our body is an instrument. So in order to achieve something called Paramarthika Satya, we need this body as an instrument, the body, mind, intellect as an instrument. So in order to keep this this instrument functioning, you need to know how you have to preserve this body in this world. For that, science has given you something called Vyavaharika Satya, where there is something called transactional reality. It says that the sun rises in the east. And because of that one sentence, there are many things which have started taking place. Like that because the sun is rising there, that is the east, and because it is east, that the sun is every day it is morning. So there are many other things which you transactionally deal. But in fact, when you look at it deeply, you will understand that the sun is always there. It is never rising or setting. The sun is there. The earth is rotating. So that is like Paramarthika Satya, where until the time you know that this is the reality, you are in a temporary reality there. So our ultimate objective, whether we are using science or Vedanta, the ultimate objective is to get to the Paramarthika Satya. That is the absolute reality. But no one can directly go to Paramarthika Satya unless there is a lot of, the previous birth, punya, or all this learning which has to take place. So the learning to take place, there is a body, mind, intellect which has to be preserved. For that, because of science, we have this Vyavaharika Satya and Pratibhasika Satya. We use the science, we use the Vedanta, ultimately to realize that we are nothing but the absolute reality.
So it's just a journey.
Yes.
Excellent. And what is your view on the word Vedanta? Vedanta?
Vedanta is, it is the end of the Vedas, the scriptures, the Upanishads, all these things are, it is like a boat where we use the boat to cross the river. The river of samsara is what we have to cross using all these as boats. But once we reach there, we have to abandon the boat. So the place where Vedas end, and you abide in the reality, that is we are absolute consciousness. I am absolute consciousness. That is the place where we have to constantly stay. So we can use Vedas, Upanishads, or anything, but ultimately everything is to be abandoned, because it is only for realization that we are the self.
Thank you, Satyaji. Gayatri ji?
Sir, nothing much to add. I agree with what everyone said.
What are any other additional points you would like to share with respect to? Do you see contradiction between Vedantic statement and the world of science?
No, sir. They are perfectly in tune with each other.
So any particular example or any way by which you would like to state that? Because the whole question is started because Padmaji felt they seem to be in contradiction. The moment I realize something is mithya, what is the use of studying at all?
So for Padmaji's question, Padmaji, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
So Padmaji, I'm just giving a try. Supposing you're in a kind of a closed place, maybe island or something where you are there and Aditya is there, and once you suddenly land up in that place, you see that nobody else is there, and there are some set of items, some things around, some articles around, and you don't know how long you have to stay there. And Aditya has a science view of mind, and you have a kind of he likes to explore the articles, whereas you want to explore why am I here, what's all this, etc. So you both have different uh, viewpoints. You both explore in the opposite directions. So Aditya starts picking up all those articles, and he tries to uh, experiment how he can start using that, because he has to live there finally. He don't know when he can go out of that room. So he starts making a better use of, he starts working with each article there, whatever is available, and he tries to mm, use those articles for your survival and his survival. So he starts, and whereas you go into the subtle aspects of things like meditation or yoga, or what's happening with the body, the health aspect, etc. So if we take that room as the universe, okay, let me come back here only, and days pass by, and the living conditions are improving, because Aditya is exploring a lot, and things are improving inside that room. You finally get some fan, you get some fire to cook, etc., etc. A lot of things he is using that to create some food. This is how Aditya is working on, whereas Padmaji is working on the mind body uh, point of view. Days pass by, and then Aditya is fine with his exploration, whereas Padmaji finds somewhere something is incomplete, somewhere some dissatisfaction is going on. And then one day, one wise person lands up in your room, and he suddenly tells you, oh, don't worry, this is all mithya. You don't belong to this room at all. By so and so reasons, you have landed in this room. This is just mithya. There is uh, the actual world is somewhere outside. Come with me. So in this example, if we see, the room is the universe. Aditya is the scientist. You are like the rishis who explored the Ayurveda, astrology, etc. And the person who has come to meet you, the wise person, is the rishis who have explored into the Advaita part. There are rishis who have gone into both the directions. Some rishis have explored into the subtle aspect of the universe. Some rishis have explored into the innermost, deepest part, which is the Advaita. So that's how astrology. See, all these things, the scientists or the rishis who have worked on the universe, basically what they have done is, whatever is available to us, this universe, let us make it a better place to live. So you have seen movies in 1950s, and then you are seeing the movies now. Even though it's a movie, even though it's all fiction, but still, aren't they improving the experience of watching the movie? It's a dream world, but let us make the experience of this dream much better. That's what scientists are working on. Whereas the jiva, as he progresses, what happens is he finds dissatisfaction, even though everything around, even though the living conditions are somewhere, the inside dissatisfaction starts. That's when he starts probing into the uh, nature of the world, the essence of the world, etc. So this is what I understand. Science, nothing, it just facilitates a better experience of this dream world. And once when you're done with the world, that's when this question, see this question, why, what is the purpose of science when it is all mithya, doesn't come to a primary kid. The primary kid is focused on science. The primary kid is focused on improving his living condition. Today you are able to ask this because you have heard from somebody that whatever is there is mithya. So you are in a different uh, level in your journey. Hence, this question has come up for you. This is what I understand.
And we are using the Mithya Zoom. We are using the Mithya internet to transact also.
Yeah, to understand Satya.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gayatri ji.
Thank you.
Okay, I heard that Priya ji wanted to add a few more points to this particular question. After that, we will stop this question. If no more points have to be added, and we'll take up the next question. Priya ji, please go ahead.
Yes, Vijay, my points have been clarified by Satya ji. Like how we understand the Satya, like she explained with Paramarthika, Vyavaharika, and the same thing. She came up with the technical words. So I too had the same information to communicate.
Excellent, excellent. And now,
But again, one more doubt I have.
Yeah.
Is Vedanta is also a science?
okay, so let's take up that as a separate question. Otherwise, we may get lost. Is Vedanta also science? We'll seek views, but for now, as far as you don't see any contradiction between Vedanta and science, both are important.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Now let us bring this question to conclusion. So Padmaji, has this brought clarity to your current question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So now if you have to state it, how would you now state your understanding? Padmaji, sorry, are you there? Not able to hear you.
Oh, yes, sir. No, I was muted and I was talking. Sorry. One
Okay,
second.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I understood it now well, because see, my question came from maybe I got confused a little bit after when I go deep into it. I start exploring very minute things. So I think that is where this thing came from. So now I understand that after that example which Gayatri ji gave, it is perfectly okay. But right now, because we are all in the same journey, that's how I keep thinking from my perspective. So that is where I think I came up to this junction where I split the two, because maybe I am not essentially using all part of the science, but that need not be so for me to use entirely the science for someone to create those things is what I got a clarity of now. Because see, I am also using all these things which are part of science. I'm not saying that I'm not using them, but now I get a clarity like why it is needed. Because for me, the basic question was like how Saravanan pointed, you don't need this luxury to basically survive, even to maintain this body through which you are going to explore your true self. You don't need this so much luxuries, or you don't need to make that dream a beautiful dream. But of course it really helps. If the dream is beautiful, why wouldn't you want it? And why wouldn't you want to experience it? That is true. I think my basic question came from that also, I feel, where I thought that maybe these are not needed. They can be used, they can be definitely give you a good and a better experience, but maybe it is not like needed is where I came to the question from, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the
So-
discussion is, it is not that is probably, can it be put as use it, but don't get used by it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I think when the experience become more and more better, you don't want to let go of that, right? It is very difficult to let go of I mean, you see, if I
That's what
have
Vedanta
two
is.
plates, yeah, if I have two dishes,
Yeah.
one is very, very nice. I mean, experientially, it is so nice.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to let go of it so easily. My body might get attached to it very, my tongue and everything. But
Yeah.
if I just have the basic, raw vegetable and, some rice, that is enough for me to maintain the body. But I won't have so much of experience that I will hold on to it so badly. Like that's, I think, where this thing came out from. Yeah,
Excellent.
but thank you, sir. I mean, all of their views, whether Satyaji, Saravanan-ji, I think all of them contributed in their own ways in sharing that question for me. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Padmaji. So then let us take up the next question that kind of came up in the conversation. What is Vedanta? Veda Anta. So some views we heard, but now let us go one by one, listen to everybody, and then go back to any next question that we want to take up. Yeah, so shall we begin in the same order? Padmaji, would you like to share your understanding first? What is Vedanta according to you?
Yes, sir, I have some basic understanding based on my whatever I know in Sanskrit, but I think I will need to go deeper into it. But currently, what I understand from Vedanta is it is the ending of all the Vedas, and I think it also has the essence of all the Vedas. And I think this has come up as, for example, we might not be in a position in one lifetime of ours to go through all the scriptures and all the Upanishads. I think it is a very, very, it's like an ocean. So Vedanta essentially gives us a gist or a summary of all the Vedas and all the teachings of all the gurus, so we can use it. And they would have taken probably many years, and they would have been constantly into those understandings, and then how to pass it on to the next generation or the next disciples would have been their quest throughout. I mean, it would have been their lifelong quest. So I think we are blessed by having this, because it's a very summarized and a view that we can understand it. We don't essentially need to be so scripturally strong or anything. Like today, even without Sanskrit knowledge, we are able to understand it. It is because of some guru who has done all this work, and currently also many are doing. So I think that is one thing. And also, I think I agree to what Satyaji also said, that it is like a tool for us to go up to a certain level, and then we also need to let go of it, because I feel it is very logical as well in its approach. So, but what we are in search of is beyond all that, beyond all the logical, all the teachings, all the learnings. So I think ultimately we also have to let go of it at one point.
Excellent. Very nice. Before I request Saravanan-ji, Hari Om Shri Charanji, didn't notice you joining us.
Hari Om Vijayji.
When did you join us?
Around 7 to 6.
Okay, so were you there when we all were discussing the last question?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't elicit your view.
No
Maybe
problem.
this round, when we come to this question, you can combine both the questions and share your understanding.
Yes, it's Vedanta also science and yeah.
No, not this question. The 11th question. Vedanta states world as
Mithya. Yeah, definitely.
why is Veda science at all? And now the question that we're taking up is, what is Vedanta?
What is Vedanta? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Saravanan-ji?
Yeah. So my understanding right now of Vedanta is basically it's the end of knowledge, where like all the questions stop. Basically, you after Vedanta, you will not have any more questions that is that is already not covered by the Vedanta. That's how I see it. I think the way things are explained, the questions are answered. Once the seeker is clear, the answer should basically question any other question. Okay, while the knowledge about the material world, it is limited to a smaller boundary, while the Vedanta basically takes it to the entirety. After that, there is no other science, if I have to use the English word, that will come to answer something that is already not answered by the Upanishads.
Does it mean that, with the clarity of Vedanta, then you'll be able to answer, say, a very intricate question about nuclear physics? Say, for example, there's a collider. So with the clarity that you get from Vedanta, will you be able to say, okay, what is this, this large collider, and how to function it and all that? Will that science naturally come to you? Will that understanding naturally come to you?
Yeah, so it I would say that the answer, it may be answered in a different way. Okay, but definitely the answer will come. Right? It's just that the answer may not be in a way the science gives it. But I have listened to a discussion. It comes with the next question as well. Is Vedanta a science? Right. So it depends on what your end goal is. If you are going to define science as exploring to understand the truth, Vedanta is also a science. Okay, if you want, if you are going to call science as something that should prove you with instruments, then like Vedanta, you cannot include Vedanta, because Vedanta says that whatever you see is limited instrument. Okay, so with the limitations of the existing instruments, you cannot answer all the things, right? So that is where Vedanta takes one step beyond the practical science what we are reading about.
Okay.
But if your purpose is understanding the truth about each and everything, then Vedanta will give you the answer.
Okay. Let me frame the previous question in slightly different way. So let's say you have realized the Vedantic pointing and the clarity has emerged. Will you be able to function as a nuclear scientist?
So it's yeah, I would say like it's not basically preparing. I'm not
okay, so
ready with the answer. Maybe
you can be with the question for some time.
Yeah, I may need to take some time to think about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Saravanan-ji. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much. Priya-ji, your views?
Yes, Vijay-ji. Vedanta. Vedanta is formed with two words, Veda and Anta. Veda, we can classify it as knowledge. Anta is not the end of it. Like it is not the end of the knowledge. It is what is the goal of the knowledge. Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, Chatur Vedas and all are there. Vedanta gives the essence of all these Upanishads, Vedas, because it's a big ocean. Okay, so to understand the summary, it is the spiritual knowledge to understand the oneness, that is self-knowledge, what is, and understanding what is God. That is Vedanta, and Vedanta is a tool to understand Atma, Brahma, and to differentiate between Satya, Mithya, and whatever the concepts now we are learning, Vedanta helps. It's a tool to understand ourselves. It is not the end of the knowledge. It starts with it is the beginning, and it is a tool, and it is the goal of the knowledge. And it is a big ocean, what I tell. And our ancient rishis and all, they have worked a lot. Even Brahma Sutras or the Shankaracharya, Advaita Vedanta is there, Dvaita, Madhvacharya, then Shaivism, Buddhism, Jainism, many these things we are learning. And everyone's aspect is the same thing. Like one is at the end we tell that the concept is to come up with I am Brahma. So that is the thing. And they have their own different types to establish the concept. But the goal of the knowledge is to understand that divinity within us. And it's a, very.
Why does it have the word anta in it? Anta generally means end, isn't it? So why does it have the word anta in it?
See, it's at the these Vedantas we are taking at the end, because only by reading the in ancient times the rishis were understanding the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Atharvana or Samaveda. But now our capacity is not to understand the whole Vedas. For example, why we are learning Gita, I can take up Rig Vedas, I can read the Samhitas, Aranyaka, many things are there. I am not capable of understanding that. I am learning the thing. Even the small, like whatever if we have a very big Bhagavatam or whatever it is, we read first the bhashas in it. Because our view, our this thing is, now we have the limited knowledge to understand the thing. So Vedanta helps. It is a tool which understands the bigger thought, and it gives in a easier way to understand this. And one of the thing is Bhagavad Gita, where we have all the essence of Veda in it, or Upanishads in it. Because many times when we are learning, the same thing will be in Kathopanishad or Taittiriya Upanishad. Many Upanishads are hidden in Bhagavad Gita. That is why now most of the Vedanta study circles are make them us to read Bhagavad Gita, because we cannot understand Rig Veda or Upanishad. The same concepts are there. Main Jiva, Atma, Sat, Chit, Anand, the same concepts are there. But our capability or our knowledge is so limited, we are not able to reach that. Might be it is my concept, the other person might be there, but the whole concept, the whole the people who are in the same area, they are holding on Bhagavad Gita or something, because where we can understand easily and go with this world, because now we can understand easily. We can understand, or we can differentiate what is required, what is Satya, what is Mithya, what is Asatya, and we can easily differentiate and understand and go along with that. That is what I tell.
Excellent, excellent. So essentially what you're saying is Vedanta, it is end of all the questions about what?
It is not a question, Vijayji. See, Vedas, it's a big ocean. We cannot tell easily that it is the end of something. This is a small, it's a tool which helps helps us to understand the whole Vedas or Upanishads, the philosophy of the scriptures, what our ancient rishis have made.
So the anta here refers to with
the goal of the knowledge.
With the aid of Vedanta, you can realize the essence of Vedas, is what you're saying.
Exactly. That is what I have understood.
Okay, excellent.
It's not easy that we easily understand. It is very easy to, because what day before yesterday I was listening to Purusha Sukta. The single word it makes, but when we go into the when we go deep into the each word, it gives more and more explanation for that. So the thing, so these now, for example, if I tell Trigunatmaka, Trigunatmaka means the three gunas we have, some Rajo, Tamo, and Sattva gunas are there. So when we are explaining that Purusha Trigunatmaka, so Vishwato Mukha, so these words, to listen it is very easy, but when we are getting understanding of each thing, so what is Vishwa? Vishwato Mukha, when he has got all the Mukha means face, so he is watching the entire world. So how he is looking, why that name came. So the knowledge, it goes on increasing. It doesn't stop. As Padmaji tells, when we go deeper into the thing, our knowledge increases. We may get confused. We may not come up with the conclusion. But of course, this Vedanta helps to understand. Yes, this Purusha, our son, is called with this name. Okay, in Veda itself, they may be explaining the whole stuff, but we may not understand this. But as a essence, as a small thing, as a summary of the thing, we are able to understand. Yes, he is explained as this. I have to accept and I have to understand this. That is my understanding, Vijayji.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Priyaji.
Thank you.
Okay, let's listen to Prakash ji.
Sorry, by listening to Priya, I forgot the question. So what is the question?
So,
I got driven away by your talk.
Answer of the question. Okay, very good.
Okay, Anta, right.
There is no more question left to you. So
Okay.
you're into silence. Okay. So
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I hear the word Vedanta, it means it's a culmination of all the knowledge, right? So Veda, as we know, is mostly of the Karma Kanda, which is talks about what we should do or how we should do, etc. The Vedanta is the knowledge part of it, or the Tattva part of it, the essence of whatever it has been done. I think that doesn't mean one should not like the study of both Veda and Vedanta may go together, but for to understand Vedanta, it needs bit of experience in the life. So one need to go through it, and then possibly you will be able to realize Vedanta. So first you need to do karma, and then you'll become eligible to attain the Jnana part of it.
So what is Vedanta according to you then?
It's a Jnana part of, see, the Veda is the Karma Kanda, and the what you are talking about is the Jnana Kanda of it. So it is the essence of it, essence of whatever you have done.
So what
that's how the things have been organized. See, for a student or for a young boy, you cannot suddenly start talking about your Atma, your nothing to do here, etc. So all you need to teach him is like our Shikshavali says, Satyam Vada Dharman Chara, you should teach him. And finally, when you go to the Taittiriya, you tell Yato Vacho Nivartante, you start telling where the words stop, where nothing exists. So such kind of things you need to graduate over a period of time, and that's what the Vedanta does.
Okay, excellent. Very nice. Thank you, Prakash ji.
I mean, just to add one more thought to it, in the Raghuvamsha, Kalidasa states, Shaishave Abhyasta Vidyanam, Yogane Visheshinam, Vardhake Munirvittinam, Yoga Nante Tanutyajam. All that it means is, while you're young, you should study, you should earn the knowledge. And Yovane Visheshanam, when you're young, you enjoy the world, you enjoy what is around you. And as you grow older and older, you start, Vardhake Muni Vrittinam, you start behaving like a Muni, and thereby you develop that maturity. And that is what is Vedanta is about.
All right. Thank you, Prakash ji. Shubha ji, what is your view on this question?
I feel Vedanta is end of the Vedas. After learning all the Vedas, you need to start looking inside and start realizing the self. It's literally like applying the teachings of the Vedas to realize your self, is what is my understanding.
Excellent. So in that sense, the Vedanta, Anta means?
Anta means end of learning part, and you start applying that to realize your real self.
Excellent. So this is essentially a tool through which you go to that end part of the journey.
Yes.
Okay. Very
Realize
nice.
Brahman.
Realize Brahman.
Yeah.
So in that, will still questions be there?
It may be there, yeah. Questions will never stop. It will keep coming. But you will reach a stage wherein the amount of questions, or you would have that kind of a maturity where you know something, not like initial part where you don't know anything.
So questions are still left.
May not be much. May not be much.
Yeah, but there are still remnants of questions, is what you're indicating.
Yeah.
If questions are still there, then how does it make it complete?
It's a journey. By realizing yourself, all your questions will get answered, is what is my understanding.
Okay. So then essentially there are no more questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, we can put it that way. Yes.
Okay. All right. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Shubhaji.
Thank you, sir.
Kamatji?
Yeah, I think Prakash has already answered half of answered half of the question, and that is, what's the question? Yeah, only two kind of people can ask this question. One who is realized, he will be wondering what's the question, and people like me, I'll be still wondering, oh, what's the question and what the answer I should look for. Yeah, but I see this Vedanta in a slightly different way. I may be wrong, absolutely wrong. For me, I keep hearing, and I heard many of them saying that Anta is end. But if you add A to Anta, it's Ananta. Ananta is limitless. Instead of saying Vedanta, if I say Veda Ananta, it is like limitless knowledge, and there's no end to it. That's how I see this. I may be absolutely wrong, but yes, I need to contemplate more on this.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, please stay with the question. Thank you. Satyaji?
Yeah, Vijayji, as I told, I feel Vedanta is the end of the quest, end of the search. So by the study of Upanishads and Vedas, that is by constant Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasa, we then abide in the reality. So Vedanta is the end of all the questions. Vedanta is the end of the search, which we constantly have. And there is a point where we are stuck to the self beyond which there is nothing. So there is a lot of intellectual clarity because of the study of Vedanta. So the intellectual clarity comes by constant Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasa, wherein there is the end of all quest and all questions. There is no more search. So it is the destination which everyone actually thrives for, though we really don't know at which part of the journey we are. By constant Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasa, there is this intellectual clarity which comes in, and there is the end of all the questions. The search ends.
The search ends. Purnamada. Okay. Thank you very much, Satyaji. Sri Charanji and then Gayatri ji, and after that we'll end today's session. Sri Charanji?
Yes, Vijay. So the first question I'll be speaking about is Vedanta meaning. So Vedanta is essentially Veda plus Antaha, which is it is essentially the last part of the Vedas. So we have so many scriptures like Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita, 4 Vedas, and all. Vedanta is essentially the keynote of all of them. So whenever, because Vedanta was essentially taught in the end, why was it taught in the end? It was because everything, all the Vedas and all were where first bringing the curiosity in the aspirant, and then the essential truths were being taught at the end. So we can, because we know that all the four Brahmavakyas originate in Vedanta, we can say that this is essentially the keynote or the main summary of all the Vedic knowledge is Vedanta. Important points like a summary is set supposed to an aspirant who 25 years he is living in a hermitage. The entire portion of it is condensed into a portion called Vedanta, all the Vedas and all Bhagavad Gita. And so that is the meaning of Vedanta.
Very nice.
Like a summary portion. And the other question is Vedanta states world as Mithya, why science at all? Yeah, for this question, Vedanta, yes, it states that world is Mithya. But then again, when the Vedas, when the rishis were writing Vedas and all, there was another branch of science in those days itself, Ayurveda. And many rishis like Patanjali, who was advocating Vedanta to everyone, was also in a particular sutra. He says that those who have a sound body and a sound mind are fit or are ready to come and learn the knowledge of Vedanta. So this is because, however, Vedanta is essentially a subject, and for reading or for understanding a particular subject, a sound mind and a sound body is required. So why did those rishis, why did Patanjali invent or put his time into developing Ayurveda? Why couldn't he just spoken Advaita and he could have left? But the rishis in those days, they were also equally concerned with the protection of the body and all. This is because they were of the principle that a sound mind and a sound body will allow them to live a more peaceful life. Ultimately, the body and the intellect should be used for understanding the self. And in the scriptures also, it is written that the lifespan of a man is 100 years, and anyone should strive to achieve that ideal. In the Viveka Chudamani, it is said that the life of human birth is rare. So yeah, this is where science comes, because why science at all? This is the answer. Because we should strive to live a good life, and both physically and mentally, so that the knowledge of the self it becomes an easier process to understand the self. A sound mind and a sound body is absolutely necessary, and it has been advocated since the past. Yeah, so this is the answer. And modern science is attempting to do the same. We can live in the comfort of our homes, and we can get access to good health care. So essentially, we can say that some of the people think that being born in Kali Yuga is bad because of all this. But then again, who can deny the medical facilities in this modern world? So I say that yes, directly studying under a rishi is great, but in this day and age where we can get Prabhuji's teachings through YouTube and Zoom, I think we are all definitely lucky, and we should strive to achieve the best. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Gayatri ji, how about you?
Nothing much to add, sir. I think Satya ji has covered it very well. Shubha ji, Prakash.
How do you see Vedanta? Do you subscribe to what Priya ji said, that this is not necessary, or what Kamat ji said, that this is not necessarily end of questions? Or do you subscribe to, or do you see it as it's end of all the questions? What is your clarity?
Okay, so it's sir, Vedanta is just a state where where you you enter, a seeker is said to have entered this state where every theory, every scripture, every, every book, everything is dropped. Even the most ancient scriptures are abandoned. So it's a state beyond knowledge. The knowledge cannot access this state. So this is, this is a state where somebody says, somebody feels, or it's a state of expression, like expression. I express that I am this, uh, truth. I am this Brahman, which has been known by all the Vedas, by all the Upanishads, by all the scriptures, by all the sages. I am this. I am this truth. So this is the now at this point, I'm just talking. I'm just feeling that reality, because at this stage there is nothing to describe. There is nothing to express also, because this is a state where knowledge becomes a barrier. Knowledge creates a restlessness and abstraction. So knowledge is required till this point. And when I get established in this state, there is not even an atom of knowledge that can exist in this state. It's called pragnana. That's the pure awareness. Pragnana is something which is beyond gnana also, beyond vidya and avidya, beyond paravidya and aparavidya. Vedanta is the, like Satyaji said, all the boats take to that point. After that, you just drop everything, and there is nothing. So it's a wonderful. So when this is the state where the knowledge disappears and Brahman appears. The knowledge stops and the Brahman awakens, because knowledge and Brahman cannot coexist. So the point of saturation where I have acquired all the knowledge, now I wait for that to happen, where I jump to, it's a paradigm shift where I jump over this knowledge.
Can it be said
That's
as
all.
where the completeness is realized, so therefore incompleteness has vanished?
Completeness is also a very small word for Brahman. So yeah, I would say where it's a state of no knowledge at all. That's all. Vedanta.
Which means there is no more incompleteness left.
There are there is the question, the requirement for knowledge has disappeared. The thirst for knowledge has disappeared. The seeking has disappeared completely. Everything has disappeared, and yeah, as you said, that I don't know exactly, because we can never say the right word for this.
Fine, we are still in the Vyavaharika world, so use something to indicate.
Then, as you said, yes, it's a state of fulfillment, as you said. That's all.
All right, excellent. So just to end our today's session, I just would like to show this picture. So this is one way of visualizing the entirety. Again, it is a incomplete mind in which this is being seen. So therefore, it is as an indicator. It is not the thing. It is an indicator. The indicator is the Ardhanarishvara. So entire existence is nothing but consciousness, absolute reality, and the expression of that consciousness as energy. And energy in various manifestations appears different. It is only a limited boundary that I am putting to this energy, saying this is tree, this is star, this is sun, this is light, this is now rice, this is now apple, this is now finger. But fundamentally, it is all a transient phenomena of energy, continuous transition of energy, movement of energy, the dance of the Shiva. So that is the Shakti. So entirety is that neither of these two are two distinct things. They are one and the same. When you look at the world, it is the dance of the energy. When you look at the self, it is the Shiva. Dance of the energy cannot be without Shiva. So for now, we'll end our today's session here. Once again, I request Satya ji to take us to the ending prayers.
Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Lead me from untruth, ignorance to truth, darkness to light, impermanence to permanence. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamaduchyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevas Sishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. That is complete. This is complete. When completeness is removed from completeness, what remains is complete. When completeness is added to completeness, totality remains complete. Om, peace, peace, and peace. Nanu, Nanembudu, Nanalla, Ideha, Manabuddhi, Nanalla, Sachidanandatma, Shiva Nanu Nane, Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. I am pure consciousness, Shiva Shvarupi. Atmadarshanam, Brahmadarshanam, Brahmadarshanam, Satyadarshanam. Recognition of self is recognition of the whole. Recognition of the whole is the truth. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanat Mrityor Mukshiyamamrutat. We worship the three-eyed one who is fragrant and who nourishes all. Like the fruit falls off from the bondage of the stem, may we all be liberated from death, from mortality. Lokaah samastah sukhino bhavantu. Lokaah samastah sukhino bhavantu. Lokaah samastah sukhino bhavantu. May all living beings be happy, healthy, and peaceful. Hari Om.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, Satya ji. I hope it's useful for all of you. Please do share, if you have any suggestions for how we can improve. The idea here is to gain clarity so that it is useful for your life. The idea here is not mere intellectual discussion. Idea is that it has to be fundamentally a transformation tool. So please come back with any comments or suggestions if you think that something has to be modified in the way we are conducting our sessions. Have a wonderful week.
Hari Om, sir. Thank you.
Hari Om, Dhanyawadalu, Guruji.
Thank you.